Greetings folks and welcome to the Electromaker Show. This is your midweek roundup of all things Maker and embedded and lovely. And this week we will be talking about the Arduino Uno Revision 4, something I would have loved to talk about on last week's show had one happened. However, yes, if you've ever built a computer, you'll know that sometimes they just die randomly until you take them apart and put them back together, and then they come back to life for no good reason. So yes, we're a little late on that news, but the Arduino Uno R4 is out. We'll also be looking at the Electromaker of the Month winning projects for this month, and they are fantastic. Looking at some new hardware as well, and touching briefly on a little bit of open source drama, but very briefly because I'm not the biggest fan of drama. But with all of that to get through, let's get on with the show. So we are, of course, beginning the show by talking about the Arduino Uno R4. R4 standing for Revision 4, but to call this a revision is a little understating what's happening here. The Arduino Uno has been completely redefined, and this is actually a sort of a big moment. I know there's a lot of hyperbole, people kind of saying this changes everything whenever any new piece of technology comes out or something changes. But for many people, the Arduino Uno was the very first bit of maker kit they ever got their hands on, and yeah, for it to change so radically as you're about to see, is quite a big deal. However, one thing that of course has not changed is the very familiar form factor, because of course not. I mean, if they changed the form factor, then yeah, you wouldn't be able to make the shields work with it. I'm just going to try and find a better place to put myself so I'm not completely in the way of the Arduino website. So, as you can see, this is still the traditional Arduino Uno footprint, as it were, but it does look a little bit different. Now, we're going to come on to what's going on just here. Can you see my mouse here? In a moment. Because, yeah, the array of LEDs on there is quite interesting. But the first thing that you will notice is that we have an ESP32 chip on there. And I think a lot of people perhaps thought that Arduino were going to move into using ESP32 chips as a general thing. You want to add Wi-Fi and processing power to something, then use an ESP32. But that's not what they're doing. The ESP32 is a Wi-Fi coprocessor for the onboard Renesas chip. And the idea of them using Renesas chips is not particularly outlandish, given that the Portenta C33, which is the cheaper version of the Portenta H7 that was announced at Embedded World, we talked about it back then, which is also, by the way, now available, something I was going to talk about on this week's show, but I will not have time to do so, also uses a Renesas chip. Boy, that was a long sentence, Ian. Anyhow, the reason that they are using the ESP32 as a coprocessor is because there are two versions of this new Uno. There is the Arduino R4 Wi-Fi, which is the one we are looking at, which costs, by the way, 25 euros, is available to pre-order, will be released very soon, which has this amazing looking LED matrix on it, which I think is just a really nice thing to have. LED matrices are something which are underrated in my opinion, especially, you know, ones like this, which are inline PCB LEDs in a stacked grid like this, and I'll explain why a little bit later. But yes, the 32 makes more sense when you see it in this perspective, because there's also a Minima version of it, which is 18 euros, which does not have Wi-Fi connectivity, but which does have the same Renesas chip. And since that's sort of the star of the show, let's have a quick look at what makes this such a big upgrade for the Uno. So let's very briefly take a look at the stats of the Arduino Uno Revision 3, which is on the right side of the screen, to the Arduino Uno R4 Minima, which is the non-Wi-Fi version of the new Arduino Uno on the left side of the screen. And there's no way that I'm going to be able to do this and be anywhere useful on the screen, so I'll be back in a moment. The Rev 3 had the ATmega 328P, which is one of the first microcontrollers I imagine most of us worked with, if you got into it more as a hobby than an engineer, whereas the R4 has the Renesas RA4M1, which is an ARM Cortex M4 chip. And there's a few other things that jump out straight away. USB-C, I know it seems so silly, but it makes me so happy that everything really is turning into USB-C. I am a big fan of the format. I know there are other people that don't agree with that. So let's look. We still have 14 digital I/O pins. In terms of PWM output, there's 6, and there's still 6 on this one. Analog input pins, there's 6 analog input pins on both. However, we now have a DAC. The Renesas chip has a 12-bit DAC output, which means you can get pretty good quality audio. I have a little sampler that I love using. It's a Volker sample by Korg. Cheap little sampler, but it is really wonderful, sounds really nice, and is also only 12-bit. So yeah, you could get some really nice audio out of that, and of course that's the first thing I think of. So let's have a look. What else do we have here? Flash memory, 32 kilobytes. What's the flash memory on this one? 256 kilobytes of flash and 32 kilobytes of RAM. This had 2 kilobytes of RAM. So, okay, so that's, wait, this is a massive upgrade here then. So, You're gonna witness first time how terrible I am at maths. Is that an 8-fold upgrade? 8 times 32? Is that? Oh. Let's just pretend that that is correct, and you can tell me how terrible I am at maths in the comments. This is a massive upgrade in memory, and of course a massive upgrade in operating speed as well. It's going from 16 megahertz up to 48 megahertz. And some of you will probably be standing there and saying, there's ESP32 chips that run at several hundred megahertz. What about the chips that the teensies run and all this kind of stuff? Look, that's not really the point. The Arduino Uno has always been the baseline. It hasn't needed to be particularly fast, and it's mighty fast enough to do most things that anyone starting out will need to do, and yet now it is up there with some pretty decent microcontrollers that you'll find in various other different use cases. But all of that is pointless. All of that is not important. All of that is against the grain here, because what you really need is an Arduino board that will work with the majority of existing Arduino things. And from what I can tell, this is hardware compatible with everything that has come before. And Arduino made a big point of saying they were porting over everything to make sure that it worked with all of the new hardware that they are using. And this is a 5-volt operating circuit development board, which is rare. But of course, the Arduino has always been a 5-volt operating operation level, and so there we go. Now, one thing I'm not sure is whether the pins are 5 or 3.3 voltage tolerant yet. I'm assuming 5 volt, but that's one thing that could be an issue. But other than that, this looks like a across-the-board fantastic upgrade. So I will leave it at that for now. I know this has been a bit of a whistle stop, not really a deep dive, but we'll get to that later. Although, 2 other quick points before we do move on. You can attach a real-time clock to it now. There's a pin for that, which is nice. The input voltage tolerance is very different. I cannot remember what the tolerance is on the original Arduino. I believe it went up to 9 volts. You can now power this via the barrel jack, and I think through the V-in pin as well, at anything up to 24 volts. Do not quote me on that. Check the documentation first. Don't fry on your Uno just because some fool on the internet told you could. But yes, the Arduino Uno revision 4 is the biggest change that's happened to the original Arduino line pretty much ever. And everyone kind of expected this because the Arduino Nano had this massive upgrade from the original Nano to the BLE Sense 33 versions and various others, the RP2040 version as well. But yes, this is a really exciting thing to see, and it's really nice to know that people who will be buying Arduino starter kits from now on will be getting this incredibly densely packed board full of amazing possibilities. So, if you'd like to order one, they're available for €25, the Wi-Fi version for pre-order, and the Minima is available now for €18. And of course, there'll be links to all of this in the description. We're going to move on to talk about the latest evaluation kit from Nordic Semiconductor. Now, this one is quite an interesting one because it is a way to evaluate their NPM 1300 Power IC. And this is an IC designed, to do exactly what it sounds like, to give power to your projects. But it's highly configurable, and it allows you to use a variety of different batteries. So let's take a quick look at it. Now, I am going to be very brief here. We have a packed show, and I just wanted to bring your attention to the fact that this thing exists, because getting power right in your project is a kind of key thing, especially if you're prototyping something that you want to maybe eventually take to being a product. Because, being able to get exactly the right amount of power to your project and to be able to use batteries efficiently, charge them safely, and have a variety of customizable options, doing that completely from scratch is a bit of a nightmare. And I'm very lucky that I've never had to do that in a commercial environment, but I know people who have. This board appears to be a way of completely making that not arbitrary, but much simpler to do by the fact that they have a completely GUI-based configuration tool, which is called NPM Power Up, I believe. And again, this is Nordic. This is all part of the NRF Connect desktop. It's all free. If you want to know the real details of it, there is a blog post that I will be linking in the description, and of course you can head to Nordic's own site about it as well. So let's quickly look at what this is. So this is the chip that we're talking about here. This is their Power IC, and this board basically breaks out every single thing that you could do with it. And so in short, this is, as it says, it has code-free configuration with the NPM Power Up desktop app, and male pin headers provide access to all of the NPM 1300 PMIC connections for easy connection to Nordic development kits and external test equipment. And of course, this is a Nordic product. It will play nicest with other Nordic development kits and boards. But this is a general purpose Power IC as well. If you are already working with designs with a different MCU, there's no reason why this couldn't fit into your design. As mentioned, you can sort of forget about configuring it, at least via code. You can do that, but you can do it by the GUI as well. So the kit also has a few LEDs and push buttons, but the thing I found nice about it, quite interesting, is that you can use a variety of different kinds of batteries with it. If you're using batteries that have a negative temperature coefficient, I believe it's called, a safety feature built in, then it'll work with that. But if you don't, it can also account for the fact that that battery doesn't have that feature, and take care of it on the software side of things, I believe is how that works. Or hardware, but software within the hardware, if that makes any sense at all. It probably doesn't. So yes, Nordic's line is like Lego blocks of super professional embedded kit, and it always has been that way. There's a reason why they had such a wide amount of respect and years of working in Bluetooth and BLE before they even brought a Wi-Fi chip into the game. And this power IC, when you bear in mind how important to Nordic Semiconductor that they do things in a low power and predictable way, something that they've kind of prided themselves on forever. They are the name in Bluetooth Low Energy, for example. I think you can probably safely assume that their power IC is going to be aimed towards being as efficient as possible. So yes, that is it. That is the new evaluation kit from Nordic. It is available now, and if you would like to find out anything more about it, of course, there will be a link in the description of this video. If you are enjoying the Electromaker Show, please make sure that you are subscribed to this channel, and if you like this video, click like. I know it gets boring when YouTubers ask you to do this kind of stuff, but there is a reason for it. After all, everything you see on YouTube, or at least most of it, is algorithm driven, and all that stuff really helps. But if you want to support us in a more traditional and concrete way, consider heading to electromaker.io/shop and looking at the vast array of both hobby development kits and professional embedded gear that we have up there. Whether you're looking to buy your first Arduino starter kit or something to do with Raspberry Pi, or 10,000 of something for your company, there's a large chance that we will be able to help. And yeah, it's the most direct way that you can support what we do. You may have noticed that unlike other shows, we don't have any inline adverts for stuff from other companies. We don't put adverts on our videos through YouTube either. In fact, if you've ever seen a YouTube generated advert on our video, that is something that is benefiting YouTube and not us, but that's fine, we're using their platform. But yes, if you would like to support us in a more concrete fashion, electromaker.io/shop. Thank you for your time. Let's get on with the rest of the show. Now, in just a moment, we are going to look at the Electromaker of the Month winners from June. And by the way, if you've never heard of Electromaker of the Month, that's me down there talking about what it is. You can find a link to the general What is Electromaker of the Month blog post in the description of this video. And we're going to look at the winners for June in just a moment. But before we do, it seems that whenever Maxwell James posts a project on electromaker.io, I have to say to people, this project is fantastic. Do not do it at home. And this one absolutely complies to that. This is a dangerous hot dog cooker, and to say dangerous hot dog cooker is understating the danger somewhat. Now, rather than go into any of the technical details, I won't, because there aren't any. Back in the 70s, there used to be hot dog cookers, which were basically what it looks like here. You put a hot dog on one bit of metal, you put it on another bit of metal, and it will cook the hot dog by electrocuting it. By plugging it into the wall. In fact, there's a science experiment that you can do. You absolutely shouldn't do. You shouldn't mess around with power in the wall, but there's a science experiment you could do where you do the same thing with a salty dill pickle, that's I think they're called in America, or a pickle, you know, of some kind, and it will light up because of the salt content of the water. Anyway, as I generally end up saying whenever I talk about Maxwell, he has a YouTube channel which is criminally undersubscribed. He makes frequent, very funny maker videos. If you're into that kind of thing, please do go and give him a subscription. This video is absolutely up to the same standard as all his all his usual stuff. I think it was also a good excuse for him to 3D print something. Why not make an absolutely terribly dangerous hot dog cooker? And if you would like to see exactly what happens, yes, head and watch his video. Cooking food via electricity is fine. It's fine. Just don't do it. Now, moving on to announcing the winners of Electromaker of the Month for the month of June. Just in case you aren't familiar, we give prizes away every month to people who put projects on our website. If you have a free Electromaker account, you can put up whatever you are doing. It's a documentation process is what we're interested in. And so if you have just bought your first Arduino and you're learning how to make the LED blink, and you document it, you have just as high a chance of winning as someone who is making something quite extravagant. The whole idea is that we're looking for passion, clear documentation, people who are very passionate about what they're doing and want to show it off, or want to teach others. And in fact, the winners this month cover pretty much all of those brackets. So let's look at the winners. In first place this month is the Arctos 3D printed robotic arm, and this one really speaks for itself. Let's just watch this video briefly, because this looks like a very professional robotic arm. It looks like something that you might actually buy for use on a production line. It is a 6 degrees of freedom robotic arm, but still, yeah, one that looks very fancy indeed. Yet this is not something that will completely break the bank. This is something designed to be created yourself. It's 3D printed parts and a very cheap set of componentry to put inside it. And again, you know, some might wonder, well, what's the point of making such a beautiful looking robot if you're going to put cheap parts in it? Well, the idea is that this is accessible. You can get the 3D printed parts from Arctos. It is actually something that they're hoping to start doing, and they've built it around hardware which is easily available. So on their website, by the way, is also very beautiful. The kits themselves come with these wonderful drawings and instructions as to how you can put them together, and the CAD files are something that you can purchase from Arctos. This isn't an entirely open source project. All the code is open source. However, they are selling these rather beautifully shaped plans for 3D printers. But the bill of materials is an interesting thing, because they have worked it around a basic kit for what you would use to make a robot, and then they discovered later, because the bill of materials, by the way, the bill of materials is just available. Like the 3D printed parts is the thing that they are selling. They will be selling full robot kits eventually. They will be selling just the 3D printed parts if that's something that you would like to buy. But they discovered that there is an AliExpress vendor that is selling basically a kit which is exactly what you need, and this entire kit is 319 euros, or as they mention, it's a certain amount of dollars. And is on offer right now. It's just something that looks kind of incredible. When I saw this show up on Electromaker, I did wonder whether this would be the thing that won. I don't choose the winners of Electromaker of the month. This is completely independent from me and anyone that is a part of the show. We thought that was a nice idea, because it means I don't have to worry about judging people's projects, which is not something I particularly want to do. But yes, this is the winner for the month, and it's just so nice to see a project like this that has clearly been really well thought out from the ground up to be accessible to people. Because right now the kits aren't available, but as it mentions in the blurb just here, is that they made a real point of making it cheaper. All the parts you need to build your own 3D printed robot, most parts are standardized and readily available worldwide. The total cost of parts is approximately $400, primarily sourced from AliExpress, but it's now been condensed into an affordable kit priced at $270. Which is interesting. I don't think this kit has been condensed down by the people making Arctos, by the way. I think this is just an interesting coincidence. I could be wrong about that. However, Arctos, you are the winners of Electromaker of the month this month. The $150 Amazon gift voucher and a pile of Electromaker swag will be making its way to you. I do hope at some point we see an Arctos robot with an Electromaker sticker on it. That would be something that would bring us a lot of joy. In second place this time is a tutorial for the Beagle Connect Freedom, which is a relatively new board. Now, if you've been following Electromaker for a while, it will be something that you are somewhat familiar with, because we actually interviewed Jason from Beagleboard at Embedded World when these two things were announced. And if you are interested in that, by the way, I can drop a link to that in the video just in the description, as always. But this is me talking to Jason, who is the head of Beagleboard, and you can see down on the table just next to us, there is two bits of development kit. It's quite hard to see, actually, and now I'm probably in the way of them. But yes, down there you see next to the big wall of micro-click boards is the Beagle Play, which is their new Linux SBC, and the Beagle Connect Freedom, which are both designed for long-range Wi-Fi communication. But the thing that has won the second prize this month is a tutorial for how to get the Beagle Connect Freedom working with Node-RED. So this is quite a nice beginner tutorial because it shows off a few things that make the Freedom so interesting. This is a micro-click board, and micro-click is another form of board which fits into the same idea as Raspberry Pi hats and Arduino shields. They are extra bits of PCB that you can stick on top of development devices to add things to it, and in this case you're seeing there's a quite nice rotary encoder with LEDs on it, and the idea of this tutorial is that you will be using the Beagle Connect Freedom with Node-RED in order to visualize this rotary encoder. Losing words slightly there. Yeah, it's a really nice combination of ideas because you're doing a tutorial for a relatively new piece of kit, but which is designed to be used by makers, but you're also giving people a fundamental introduction to the idea of Node-RED, which is something which a lot of people probably won't have fiddled with before, especially if this is their first board. This isn't the only tutorial that A. Taylor 2 has put on the website, by the way. She's also put out another tutorial for the Beagle Play, which is very similar to do with Node-RED. It's worth checking that out too. But this is the one that has won the second prize. As it says here, the judges were impressed with this tutorial because it's quite a new piece of hardware, and seeing the easy-to-follow guides is a great step towards getting more folks included with new maker boards, which is, yeah, ideal. So, congratulations, A. Taylor 2. You will be winning $100 in Amazon gift vouchers, along with some tidy Electromaker swag that will be making its way out to you. And in third place is another tutorial, but with a slightly different theme to it. This is a tutorial essentially for the Cubitro IoT cloud system. And it is one of many online cloud systems for the Internet of Things, but it appears to be a very easy to use one, a very beginner-friendly one. And this one uses an ESP32 with a temperature and humidity sensor, and uses it to connect to Cubitro via MQTT, Cubitro. I'm going to say Cubitro and Cubitro interchangeably because I read it as Cubitro the first time I read it, and it's stuck in my head forever. But yes, the Cubitro is an MQTT broker in this instance, and the good thing about this tutorial is, it allows it's kind of a good starting point. Once you've set up one thing with the via MQTT with it, you could set up a variety of other things with a variety of different forms of development boards as well. Given that MQTT is so well supported, yeah, it's a great choice. And I think that's one of the reasons the judges liked it as well. With the great documentation, it's easy to follow and build upon. The showcases how to use an online IoT service as a cloud broker for your DIY smart home. So, congratulations. This is a project by Akshayan Sinya, and you have won the third prize, which is a $50 Amazon gift voucher and a pile of Electromaker swag. Congratulations to all three of our winners, and thank you to everyone who continues to put fantastic projects on our website. As I mentioned earlier, just before, one of the reasons I'm so glad that I don't have to actually judge these things is that I just get to look at people's projects, and by far the thing I spend the most time doing for Electromaker, other than of course making the show, it is reading through all of the community projects. I think I genuinely have read every single project on the site since I pretty much joined Electromaker, with a few gaps, having children and things like that will take you away for a while, but I'm pretty sure I have read through every single project that has been up there, and just seeing what people are making is one of my favorite things to see. Now, there has been another product of the week. In fact, the product of the week was from last week, but unfortunately there was no show last week. But this one is one that I have talked about briefly before. It's one that I'm really quite excited about. It's one that I would love to get my hands on and play with a little bit myself. However, I do not have the chance nor the time to do that, but one of you will definitely be getting your hands on this because, of course, we will be giving it away. But we're getting ahead of ourselves slightly. The product of the week this time is the NRF5340 Audio Development Kit. That is Nordic's audio development kit featuring their system on chip for Bluetooth Low Energy. The NRF5340, which at the time of it being made was the flagship. Of course, they have just announced the NRF54 series, but that's still very, very new with only one chip available. But yes, this is a really interesting idea because Bluetooth audio is obviously a really big deal, but the SoC in itself is really, really powerful. It's their most powerful SoC. It has Bluetooth connectivity. So sure, you can send audio over Bluetooth, but you could generate audio on it. Yes, I'm talking about making a synthesizer using a microcontroller again. Yes, I really only have one thing I ever think about. Anyway, as always, our in-house gadget guru Robin Mitchell is here to guide you through it in video form. There's also a written article about it too. We also wrote a spotlight on the board when it was first announced and released. I'll leave a link to that in the description as well if you're interested in finding out more. And I'd really advise going and watching Robin's fantastic video about it. And if it is something that you are interested in, then maybe you would like to win one. And of course, as you know what's coming next. This is an Electromaker contest. It is fiendishly easy to enter. It is free, and you can do it in about 20 seconds. Yes, all you need to do is be subscribed to this YouTube channel and head under this video and leave a comment. And that comment simply has to say what you would do with it and leave the hashtag NRF5340DK. That is NRF5340DK, all one word, no spaces. And when it comes to next week's show, we will search through all of the entries and we will be picking a winner at random. We used to pick based on what people said they would do with it, but I think it's far fairer to just pick a winner at random. And I get a kick out of reading what people would make with one anyway, and maybe that's a feature we can start doing. Even if you haven't won, we'll start looking through at some of the more inventive ideas that people have for these product of the week winners. But yes, our product of the week this time is the Nordic semiconductor NRF5340 audio development kit, and one of the ones that for reasons that are probably quite obvious I find quite exciting, and hopefully at some point in the future I will also have one that I can play with, and maybe we'll have a more music focused hands-on section of the Electromaker Show. But yes, these are all pipe dreams currently. So that contest is running as of now. Good luck. So I did say I'd cover the latest open source drama, but to call it drama seems stupid. And Jeff Geeling's the one who's really been taking the strides here to talk about what's happening. So this is RedHat, and RedHat essentially have just completely closed down their open source side of things. It's not quite true, but it's as close to it. This diagram actually covers it quite nicely. For a long time, RedHat has been taking Linux, which by the way is completely open source, and then they've been adding RedHat Magic on top of it, and then they would give a version of Red Hat Enterprise Linux out that people pay for, but they would also release the source code for what changes they made to Linux so that other people could compile their own version of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Now, a quick reminder that this little graph here starts with an open source version of Linux that they are taking and changing in order to sell, and that's fine. That's completely legal. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but since ever, if you're working with open source stuff, it's just polite to release that source so that if you want to sell your builds to people who don't want to build stuff themselves, like companies, for example, fine. But release the source to the people who are going to actually have the nous to do it themselves. After all, you use open source material, yeah. Now, Red Hat hasn't broken the law or done anything wrong by doing that, but they're not acting in a good way. There is some other stuff they've done which might be potentially more dodgy, and the language that they've been using, as you will see if you head to the Jeff Geeling video, which I think you absolutely should. He will explain it in many better ways than I have, and he is also someone who uses Red Hat and Ansible in his day job, or at least I assume was his day job. I don't know if he's a full-time YouTuber now. Yeah, it's what they're doing is not great. I urge you to go and watch Jeff Geeling's video, and if there are other takes on it, have a look at them. I'd be very interested to hear what you think of them, especially if you are a network engineer and have worked with Red Hat stuff in the past. But I can't see any angle from this where it doesn't look like Red Hat are just trying to desperately find ways to monetize themselves more, given that they are owned by IBM, and I can't see IBM being very chill and just saying, yeah, be an open source project that doesn't make that much money. I don't see that being a possibility. If I am wrong, please tell me exactly why I'm wrong in the comments of the video, and of course you can find a link to Jeff's video in the description. By the way, long-time Jeff Geeling viewers will know Red Shirt Jeff. The one thing I want to know is why he didn't choose to wear a red hat in this video. Red hat. That has been our show. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for all of the support that you continue to show us. And yes, I would love to hear your thoughts on various aspects of this show. Of course, what you think about the new Arduino board. I think the R4 is actually genuinely quite exciting for them to get a board that's this much of an upgrade out, but which is now the new baseline Arduino, and for it to be that cheap is kind of amazing in my mind. I'm sure others will disagree. There's always a cheaper development board you can get from somewhere, but yes. And of course, I'm very excited to hear what people think about the whole Red Hat drama, and anything else that was on this week's show. So yes, I will be back to chat to you next week, and I hope you have a fun, safe, and creative one. Take care. Bye-bye.